Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your co-host, Pierce Nahigyan. Before I begin the episode, I'm chiming in here to offer you a trigger warning. Episode 21 of Lost is a particularly heavy episode in that it deals with suicide and suicide bombings. Given the sensitive nature of this topic, Derek and I just wanted to warn you before we got things started. Since the entire flashback of this episode is focused on this story, there aren't any timestamps I can give you that avoid discussion of it. If this is a topic that makes you uncomfortable, I suggest just skipping this one and moving on to the next episode. And if you or someone you know is dealing with mental health struggles, we've provided contact information in the notes to help you out. Thank you for listening, and now, on to the episode.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not looking forward to talking about this episode.
Welcome to the podcast, brother.
Welcome to the podcast, brother. Today. Sorry. No, I did that. Oh my God. Not a strong start. Okay. And this is
Losing Lost.
Today, we are talking about Season 1, Episode 21 of ABC's Lost, The Greater Good. It was directed by David Grossman and is his only episode of Lost. It was written by Leonard Dick, who previously co-wrote In Translation with Javier Grigio Marks Watch. He will go on to write several episodes in Season 2, but this is his only solo Season 1. What did you think about this episode?
I liked it. I think that it's higher than that lull that I mentioned earlier. In Translation, Homecoming, Outlaws, numbers. I like it, and I'm also a lot of it. I can't believe they go there. Like in the same way that when we discussed Raised by Another, how they very briefly dip their toe into abortion, and even then, like even though they don't necessarily bring it back to abortion, they certainly talk about like not wanting a child, giving a child away kind of stuff. And, you know, especially, certainly today, what a controversial subject to just kind of be like, yeah, we'll have that be that character's story. This episode is continuing the trend of characters with secondary flashbacks where they take a turn. And specifically what I'm referring to is in the last Jack episode, we saw Do No Harm. Up until that point, the flashbacks that we've seen are very much tied to his relationship with his dad. And we kind of assume that, or we could assume that that's all there is. And in Do No Harm, they introduce, oh, by the way, Jack was married. It's a new thing that we didn't know and are now like, oh, how did that relationship happen? How did it develop? And clearly, how did it end? And similarly with Locke's Deus Ex Machina, we thought that we understood that he was handicapped, always told he couldn't do something, was a very milquetoast life, and then could walk. And it's like, oh, that's his story. But Deus Ex Machina introduced this idea of like, well, long before that happened, this guy was raised in foster care, finally met his biological father, who conned him out of a kidney. And so, you know, it's like here's the other part of this. Whereas other characters that we've seen a second flashback of, such as Kate, we learn nothing new about her. Outlaws, we at least learn why Sawyer was in Australia, but it is very much a continuation. And as you point out with Charlie and Homecoming, it really was kind of just like a palate cleanser. It's just here's Charlie being Charlie. And yeah, even then In Translation, although it was the only Jinn, it very much was like a part 2 of the same story that we saw with In the House of the Rising Sun. Yeah. So this is Sayid's second flashback episode. And it's dark. There's so much to unpack with Sayid as a character in this. And I mean, I think the moral of it is there's no good people in Sayid's story. The government's not helpful. They've got both American and Australian, so both of them are terrible. You've got Sayid, who, despite maybe being unwilling, still does something truly horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you get it because he's trying to protect someone, but it's also like, man, this is like, it is so severe. I'm so mind blown that this was allowed, because in this day and age in particular, I know, as I'm sure you know, if you watch any TV show that even has commentary or a character that is struggling with mental illness and is potentially suicidal, they now, every single time on the prompt, you will get a black screen that says, hey, this episode deals with mental health issues. And if someone is, or if you or someone you know is struggling with suicidal thoughts, please seek out help. I get that this character is not represented as having mental health issues necessarily, but yeah, it is very much effectively being peer pressured into.
And he is absolutely dealing with trauma and unresolved grief. Yeah, that actor does a great job in this episode. And to my mind, he is one of the only ones.
I know exactly what you're talking. Well, I know at least one of the things that you're talking about, because that is where I will say perhaps the biggest slight that I had with this episode. I don't know if Terry O'Quinn is tired or the writing for him was just bad, but there is almost nothing that Terry O'Quinn as John Locke does where I'm like, this isn't believable. This doesn't feel earned. This doesn't feel justified. It's real bad.
I don't know if I would go so far as to say he's bad in this episode, but so I think this is one of the worst episodes of the season.
Oh!
And the reason I do is because every single thing that happens in this episode to me just feels off. Not necessarily wrong, but just not right. Like, it's like somebody traced over an episode of Lost and then was like just a couple degrees off. And so the picture is just slightly fuzzy. Like, none of it feels right to me. And it's such a bummer after the tour de force of last episode, one of my favorite episodes of the season, for everything to, and especially because the last episode ends so climactically with Jack saying, like, I'm going to go find John Locke. And then it's almost immediately undone in the beginning of just being like, well, no, Jack's a wreck. He's not going to find anybody, which I appreciated. I appreciated that we continue the through line of Jack doesn't know what the hell he's doing in the jungle. He will always get lost. He's terrible at this. And I appreciate that continuity. But it's like you have the promise of the last episode not being fulfilled, where Kate goes back, gets Jack, brings him back. Okay. We have Boone's funeral. Nobody has to go find Locke because Locke shows up and says, oh, I'm very sorry. Sorry, everybody. You have Jack absolutely losing his shit, which I liked. But again, it also is just like the note that I wrote in the margin there was like, should Jack be the leader? I understand. I understand he's been awake for like 48 hours and he's lost a lot of blood. And then you have this story of Shannon just going off to kill Locke herself because Jack called him a liar. And this entire flashback with Sayid is so undercooked and disrespectful in a way. Like, I agree that, like, it's cool that they did go there, especially because let's remember this took place 2 years after the war in Iraq started. Like, this was absolutely, and again, I'm talking to the younger people in the audience, if there are any. I don't think that I could properly articulate just what the atmosphere in this country was post 9/11. Like, it was bad. It was really bad, especially for people of Middle Eastern descent who might not have even been Muslim. And it's also, I don't know, this is not Naveen Andrews' fault, but like the fact that Naveen Andrews is not Middle Eastern, that he is an Indian man, it's weird. And that
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
that's weird.
It is. And again, like, this was more common practice back then, but I'm double checking this now because I believe
I know exactly what you're talking about, though, because if I'm not mistaken, I distinctly remember being like a sophomore in high school when like Memoirs of a Geisha came out, and they hired like a Chinese actress. And I remember being like at the time thinking I was a champion of rights. And I'm like, well, if she's a great actress, why does it matter? And in retrospect, I'm like, that matters a lot.
Yeah, it's like, because I'm the same way where I think that, like, if you're a good, actor, you deserve to get a role. But it's also like, if you're playing a role that is very explicitly a particular culture, I don't know. I'm not allowed to really comment on that, but it does feel odd. So Naveen Andrews is English. His parents were from Kerala, India. And it's funny too, because the only reason I know that is because there was I don't know if anybody will remember this movie, Bride and Prejudice. It was like a Bollywood movie. It was like a Bollywood movie where it's like Pride and Prejudice, but like with the Bollywood version. And Naveen Andrews is in that, and he does his great like dance in the beginning. Anyway, not to get to get back on track. This story that they're telling had the potential to be something, to be so important, and I just don't get it. I don't get why it's here. I don't get what it influences on the island, and we don't spend enough time with this story to really see how it impacts Sayid, because this is serious shit. Like, as you said, like, this is a big deal. Like, the thing is, like, this was happening. Like, shit like this was happening, and it just feels like we did the most surface level thing, and I don't know. I mean, I think Sayid does as good a job as he can. The actor, like I said, the actor who plays Assam does, he's really, I mean, I think his incredible eyes are doing like 50%.
I know.
They're so, oh my God.
His beard is gloriously
it's
trimmed.
really good. It's really good. Yeah. Yeah, he's acting his heart out in this episode, but I don't know. It doesn't feel complete to me. This whole episode, I don't like it. I don't like it. Even the reveal of Locke telling him, like, I'm the one who knocked you out, like, even that just feels really anticlimactic, because it's like he just stands there and just tells him. And I feel like in another episode, like, all of this stuff I would be raving about, but there's just something that's always felt wrong to me about this episode, and I still feel that way. I don't like it.
Wow. I definitely like this one a lot, despite and especially now knowing how insensitive it is. And I think one of the things, so my kind of head thesis for this was, I got the impression they figured out what drives Sayid in this episode, because up until this point, everyone who has been forced to kill someone, be it Jack or Kate or Sawyer, they have all wrestled with typically one death that has caused them just this trauma. And for Sayid, it's a job. And the thing that it made me think of was, allegedly, the pitch for the movie The Iron Giant was some dudes walked into a room and said, what if a gun had a soul? And I think that's Sayid. I think that they figured out.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Well, because he's a killer, but also he does what he does for love. And to me, that's the parallel that they're trying to build, is that what is the length he's willing to go to for Shannon? Because the length he's willing to go to for Nadia is either watching someone do a terrorist attack where innocents will die, or convincing your friend to kill himself.
Yeah,
I found it fascinating. Maybe the first time ever that I paid close attention to this episode. There's a lot that I like about Sayid on the island in this episode that in the past I know I would have written off as cheesy or corny. And I specifically remember a line where in my head it was way more over dramatic than it actually ends up playing out. which I'll talk about when we get to.
Okay.
But yeah, and I actually was very impressed with Maggie Grace in this episode. And we continue to build on the trope of people who shouldn't have guns
Oh yeah, 100%.
keep using the guns. And
That is a genuinely funny moment though when
oh yeah,
he's like, "You've never used a gun," and she just like fires at the side. It's like, okay, all right, you proved your point.
yeah. So I think as far as a character driven episode, I think that Sayid, especially on Island, shows real growth. I think the flashback was just, we talked about incest and of hearts and minds as like, is this still shocking? This episode, yeah, you want to shock me? This was it. Like I was
Yeah.
I was genuinely like, I don't remember that this is what we're doing. And I think like, I don't know. I don't know if it's whether I was brainwashed or just too young to understand or what, but I definitely did not realize, like, if I'm being totally honest, I think the first time I watched this as like a 15 or 16-year-old, I think when his friend kills himself, I'm like, oh, so they tied up that loose end. Like, that's not a problem anymore. And yeah, like it's I will say that the part that I definitely meet you halfway on is the things being off, and in particular for me, it was John Locke. And again, I don't actually hold this against Terry O'Quinn. I don't know if it's the writing. I don't know if it's an off day or filming week or whatever. But his characterization in this episode is wrong to me. I know at one point we were talking about how maybe there's a universe out here where each character's character-driven episode is from their perspective, and these are all like parallel universes. And so like when you see things from Jack's perspective, this person appears more welcoming, whereas when you see something from Charlie's perspective, this person appears more distant and blah blah blah. And like in a Sayid centric episode, maybe, or just not in a Locke centric episode, maybe this is how Locke appears from the outside looking at him. But yeah, it was he did not feel like the same character.
I agree with you, but I don't know if that's because we're seeing a different shade of Locke than we've ever seen before. His faith in the island is being tested. He's upset. He feels responsible for what happened to Boone. But I also don't know if my whole thing with that monologue that he gives at the funeral is that I don't know if we're supposed to read that as Locke being so choked up that he doesn't really know what to say or what he's saying, or if it is Locke trying to appear that way.
Yeah, I think it's the latter.
Yeah, because I wish the episode was a little clearer on that, because it would seem from his conversation with Shannon that he does feel remorseful. But I really don't know. It feels very ambiguous, and not in a good way. It doesn't feel like the show is trying to be ambiguous. It feels like the show is not making it clear, because it doesn't know. But yes, he is acting differently in this, and Terry O'Quinn is a good actor, so it's odd that I can't tell how sincere this is supposed to be.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is it didn't feel sincere. It doesn't feel like he's like getting choked up, and the way that it's shot, they make it seem like they all hate me now. Shoot. And it's like, buddy, Boone's dead. You're covered in his blood. Like,
read the room.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't understand.
And I guess also I was hoping that this episode would be like a chase through the jungle, like a very impaired Jack stumbling through the jungle, like hallucinating, trying to find Locke, and Locke is at the hatch, or he's at the canopy, and like Sayid's also out there trying to get them both, and like there is a more exciting version of this episode, and I don't know why we didn't get it. And I don't want to blame the writer or the director, but I think it's interesting that this is the only episode directed by David Grossman, and it's the first solo episode written by Leonard Dick. I wish I could be more eloquent about what's wrong. Everything just feels a little wrong, even though the subject matter of the episode should be like, this is all classic Lost stuff. It feels listless to me.
Interesting. Maybe part of that is because they do kind of repeat a handful of tropes. I mean, Locke being held at gunpoint in the pouring rain, by someone who shouldn't be holding the gun is very reminiscent immediately of Charlie in the pouring rain shooting down Ethan. Like it's
Yeah, and even that, like, it felt forced. It's like Locke says a storm's coming, so
Yes.
obviously we're gonna have to have the climax in the rain. And it would almost be better if Locke said nothing, and because even Sayid says when they go to the plane is like, if we leave now, we'll be back before the storm. It's like the episode keeps telling us, oh, the storm is coming, and it's like it's a jungle island. We know that it rains. You don't even need to set us up for that. Like I don't. It feels amateur. It feels like amateur hour, Derek. That's what it is.
No, I think that's a good assessment. I think I can definitely get behind that, because I will say, in terms of what you were talking about, of how are we supposed to feel when Locke is delivering the speech, and when Shannon decides, oh, I'm going to take a gun and kill Locke, and things feeling listless, I can definitely agree in that I think they did a lot more of the not good vagueness, where certainly, you know, we've talked about it, and this gets way worse the deeper into seasons 2 and 3, when characters will just say lines and expect you to read into them.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it feels like they're relying on the audience to do the work that the writers didn't.
Yeah.
I think that if I really think about it, Shannon jumping from not even saying, hey, can you interrogate Locke? Because she doesn't. She just tells Sayid, John Locke killed my brother. Can you do something about that?
Mm-hmm.
It's a very ambiguous line.
Yeah.
And in this episode, I think the reason is because they want you to be like, is Sayid going to kill this guy? Because that's what the flashback's telling us. But that's the thing, is that then when characters need to have more sincere moments, it's like it carries over. And yeah, you get a John Locke delivering a monologue that I don't believe. And certainly a grimace from John Locke at Jack about like, she shot me because you told her I was a liar. And it's like, buddy, I'm still on Jack's side. You're like, you are a liar. Like, there's definitely, yeah, it's weird, but it's also weird too. Even the when you mentioned that, like, kind of amateur, the relationship stuff, I guess, with Sawyer and the baby, that should have been funnier. I'm realizing.
Yeah.
And instead, Sawyer also kind of plays it like he doesn't know how to read.
That's a thing too, where I was like, this guy reads all the time. I mean, it could be like he's just not used to reading out loud. And look, some people, read slower. That is another thing. I didn't make a note of it, but I absolutely agree with you that I was like, this should be like, the timing of this should just be better. And the whole episode feels like that. It just feels like somebody who's not familiar with the beats and the rhythms of the island and the characters. Yeah, no, that's a really, really good point.
Yeah, it is a little clunky.
It seems like Josh Holloway was having a good time. He cracks a smile when Charlie is chasing after him right before he starts running away.
I mean, again, I like a lot of it. I would still, for me, I would still put this high, even with this criticism. I don't think I would put it in top 5, but I think part of it is just the subject matter. Like, I can't believe they go there.
Yeah, I mean, and credit where credit's due. It is very heavy material.
But yeah, I also haven't reread my notes since we started this, so I'll be curious as we go through it to see. Oh, sorry. This is also worth mentioning now, though, to indicate how little I paid attention to this episode in the past. I did not realize that this incident happens before Sayid gets on the plane that he was on.
Yeah, this is what happens the day before he gets on the plane.
Yeah, which I was like, this adds a whole different context. But yeah, that's how little I paid attention to this. I was like, I just assumed this happened somewhere in his journey.
Yeah. So we open on Sayid watching Shannon grieve Boone. He very kindly asks if there's anything he can do for her. He also tells her that he didn't let, or that he was told that Boone didn't let Jack take his leg because he didn't want the antibiotics to go to waste. Which I wrote, if you say so. I don't remember that conversation from the last episode, but fine.
Yeah. No, I totally, yeah, it feels a little, it's like is she happy now? Yeah, she's happy. She's at peace. That kind of, she went quietly. It was fine. Yeah, no, I do know that the first time I saw this, I really thought Sayid was trying way too hard for a girl he just met.
I think he's just being nice. I think he's
so
trying
too.
to offer comfort. Yeah.
I watching this today, I was like, I think he's being really sweet.
Yeah, he's not pushing too hard. He's trying to be there for her. And he knows, he knows how tough this is. And I also think there was a tiny part of Sayid who's just like was really excited to get this relationship with Shannon started, and now he's looking at it. He's like, oh man, that's out the window. That's not happening.
No, well, and that's one of the reasons why I appreciate how he plays this, because I'm sure, even though it is never even hinted at or explicitly said, he very much plays this as, I bet she feels guilty. Mm-hmm. Like, had she not been with me, this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, you're right. We get our first flashback of Sayid being marched through Heathrow Airport in London in handcuffs. He's been in a holding cell for 18 hours. Not an arc number, which is one of the things that, I noticed in this episode, where it's like a lot of times when they have the opportunity, like, this could have been, it could have been 15 hours, it could have been 16 hours, and it wasn't. It's 18 hours.
I literally wrote in my notes 18 hours in a holding cell, because after hearing these numbers, I was like, oh, that's got to be one of them.
And right, I did the same thing. I circled it, and I was like, here's an arc number, and then I was like, wait a second, no, it's not.
Yeah, that is weird.
Right?
Yeah.
So he is interrogated by a CIA agent from the US, of course, and an ASIS agent from Australia. And ASIS stands for the Australian Secret Intelligence Service. It is basically the Australian CIA. They don't work domestically. They work on, like, international cases.
They're all mean. Like, the Australian guys.
They are absolutely merciless. They do not give a shit about anybody. It's
whatever.
Yeah, it's I don't think it's I'm not going to say it's comical, but it's just like,
no, it is. Here's the thing. I'm rereading my notes. I'm looking at this. They have this line of Sayid says, "Why should I care?" And the Australian guy's like, "Because people will die." And Sayid goes, "I repeat, why should I care?" And they're like, "Because we can help you find Nora." And I wrote in my notes, "Oh, this is a love story." And I was like, what off of that scene would make you think that this is in any way romantic?
I mean, it kind of is. I mean, that's both storylines. Sayid is doing something for a lady.
He's a gun with a soul.
Yes, yeah. No, I think that's a fantastic analogy. He is the Iron Giant. So they inform him that 300 pounds of C4 has been stolen by a terrorist cell, quote unquote, intent on disrupting the coalition presence in Iraq. Australia was part of the, again, quote unquote, coalition of the willing, the countries that joined the U.S. in invading Iraq. I can't speak more intelligently on this. All I can say is that Australia was one of our allies, and that was certainly controversial. And so what they're saying here is terrorists have taken explosives with the intent of blowing it up in Australia as retaliation for joining the U.S. in its war in Iraq. Sayid said he's an Iraqi, not a terrorist, but his old roommate from Tehran University, Essam, is a terrorist. They inform him. They've been tracking him. They say he left Iraq 7 years ago. Again, not 8. It's not 4. It's so close to being an arc number, and it's not. And it's funny because, like, we have given this show shit for, like, just tossing in arc numbers willy-nilly. And now that it's not, it feels weird. And it feels like they're not paying attention. They say the only reason why somebody hops in and out of countries the way he does is because they're running from something or they're looking for something. Sure, they work for the CIA. I guess they know. He's searching for Nadia. The CIA knows where she is. and she's alive, which directly contradicts what he told Rousseau in Solitary.
Yeah, I didn't realize that this is when they reveal that. It seems weird that they, again, I know we talked about this when it happened, but it is just such a weird, it's weird because, again, as we talked about, when he's being interrogated by Rousseau, that is the only thing he says that is a lie.
Yeah. And again, this is obviously one of the last episodes of the second batch that were ordered. So, maybe they changed their minds with everything that happened. But again, in the flashbacks for Solitary, we don't see Nadia get killed. He just tells Rousseau that she's dead. So that leads us to believe that perhaps in a future flashback, we'll see how Sayid learns that she's dead. But instead, it's just, nope, she's alive. She's definitely alive. And he knows she's alive. He is told, by the end of this episode, he is told where she is and given tickets to go find her.
Shout out to Irvine.
I know. Well, we'll get to that. I love it when they say she's in Irvine. It's a town just south of Los Angeles. I'm just like, nope. No, relative to other things in California, it's just south of Los Angeles, but it's with traffic, it's going to be a drive. You're not, I'm sure Irvine would love to be told that it's just south of Los Angeles for all the commuting that you're going to be doing, but no, it's not accurate. Put it this way. If you had to do a day trip down to Irvine and it was optional, you wouldn't take it if you're living in Los Angeles. You wouldn't do it. Okay, back on the island. Kate finds Jack blundering through the jungle, and it's great. She finds his bandage on the bushes, and Jack comes back around, and the look that he gives her when he sees her is just sort of like, she's gonna give me shit about this. I'm just gonna keep moving. I'm fine. I don't.
Yes, I love it. This is the kind of continuity stuff that, again, it's so funny.
Yeah.
Because I love that they don't show us Jack go off into the jungle. They just show us Kate. And it's like, oh, right. Yeah, he doesn't know how to do this.
No idea. It's not his skill. It's not in his skill set.
Yeah.
He didn't put any skill points into nature or investigation.
As you said, I love his look. He's like, because even like just like suck in his like upper lip kind of thing of like, oh.
Yeah, almost like he thought it was gonna be Locke, and it's not. And he's like, fine, I'm just gonna keep moving. Jack says Locke lied, and he based his treatment on that lie. Kate tells him that the Sox need their leader back. And the next scene is the funeral. It's Boone's funeral.
I can't believe you're not going to call out Crazy Eyes Jack.
I don't. We're going to get to Crazy Eyes Jack. Oh boy, are we going to get there. But because this whole episode, he's just a second away from just collapsing. I think it's more crazy exhausted Jack. But yeah, he's in such bad shape. Nobody plays strung out like Matthew Fox. Even Charlie doesn't play strung out that well. He's so fucked up. And he's so mad. He's so mad. Like, it goes back to when Claire and Charlie were taken, and he is positively livid that his people have been taken. And this is even worse, and that somebody lied to him. Like, how dare somebody lie to Jack? Like Jack, who shall not be lied to. Jack needs the truth. He's like, you made me lose a patient. This is your fault. God damn you.
I do also like too. Jack genuinely looks sad when Kate asks him to come back. It's like, Jack, did he do it? He's like, I was doing a thing.
You know why? Because he's gonna have to go to the beach for the funeral, and he hates the beach, and he loves caves.
Okay, this is something too that now that you've mentioned the episode feeling off, I wrote this down because it was like, that's weird. When they are cutting to like starting the funeral of like bringing the people in, Sawyer, center frame, brushes a tear out of his eyes and walks up.
Yeah. like of all people, it's sure it humanizes Sawyer, but it's also like of all the people on this island who really wouldn't give a shit about this, you just be like, yeah, that kid was a piece of shit. I don't care.
Yeah. Sawyer beat the shit out of him. Like I that was such a weird choice.
It's like, yeah, make Sawyer look sad. I get that. For him to like look that sad, like I don't buy it. I don't know who he's trying to con. Maybe he's trying to sleep with somebody in the island, and he's just trying to put on a face. So everyone shows up for the funeral, and when Jack asks Shannon if she wants to speak, she's too grief-stricken to say anything. And Sayid speaks up to remind us that Boone failed to save Joanna. He says he'll remember Boone's courage, and he knows that he'll be missed. And that second part is true. Obviously, Shannon will miss him. And again, this is Sayid being really nice. He's trying to do something nice for Shannon. But it's like, yeah, I mean, Boone was the first in the water, but Jack had to save him and pull him out, and in the process, Joanna died. So I don't know if this writer remembers that. But
well, that's also what Alex is like. He was the first in the water. Well, he was one of two. So, you know, but no, this is again. I know when I first watched this, I thought this was weird, grandstanding, blowhard kind of like, I want to sleep with Shannon. So, and I didn't feel that way this time around. I really did feel like Sayid was making an effort, to say something, recognizing that it's like, Jack's not going to say anything. Shannon can't say anything.
Yeah.
And I thought that Shannon's portrayal of this grief-stricken, I think that was great. I think that she actually, you had made a comment way early on that she has a tremendous way of delivering every line through her teeth, through grit teeth. And she does a lot of that in this episode, but it is good. Like, I was genuinely like, this is such a different side of Shannon than we've seen, even beyond the angry Shannon that we've seen either at Boone or in flashbacks about how things worked out. Yeah, this quiet, seething rage. I think she's doing a great job.
She is. Maggie Grace is killing it in this episode.
I also wrote, this is the first time I noticed how much longer Sayid and Sun's hair is. Just as an aside.
Locke shows up.
Like a goddamn monster.
Covered in blood. No one looks happy to see him. Locke seems upset, flustered, and as we said, like, you know, I'm still not sure how to read this. If it's him putting on a performance like he did with the raft being burned, trying to get people's attention away from Jin and onto the others who he knows didn't do it, or if he's so upset and ashamed at himself that he doesn't really know what to say, because he keeps looking off, you know, in a way like he can't meet anybody's eyes, but it also just it feels very deliberate. Like it feels more mannered than Terry O'Quinn usually is. So
I think that raft is a great example because that's a perfect example of grandstanding, despite the fact that we know that he knows that the others did not do it.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows that Walt did. And the way that he plays this, it feels weird because, again, now that we're watching it again, it's like, he's not an old man, but he really does kind of just play this as like a old man who misplaced something.
Yep. That's exactly it. That's what bothers me about this. Up until this moment, Locke doesn't feel like an old man to me. He feels like, he's an older man, obviously, but that's exactly how he plays it this episode, that he almost doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know what's going on. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, sir, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Jack loses his goddamn mind. Oh my God. He starts literally shrieking at John Locke.
I was like, especially like when they do kind of like after the initial, like, you keep your focus here, even when like I forget what shot it is, but like he's in the background, like he is not the focus, and you hear him like it even hits a pitch. You're like, I didn't know he could hit that.
No, he is shrieking like a child. And it's funny too, because I swear, because I feel like we've quoted it on this podcast before, where the hell were you, John? He never says that. He never says he just keeps saying, where the hell were you? Like, he's just shrieking it over and over. Like, he is so upset. And it's like, and I get like, we've saw, like, the whole last episode shows how fucked up Jack is. Like, he has lost a lot of blood. He has been working nonstop. He has had to see somebody in his care die. He based his prognosis off of wrong information, and he's a wreck. But just, where were you?
Yeah, I love it. Because the other thing too is that even when he jumps into Locke, he doesn't punch him. He like fumbly grabs him in the face.
Yeah,
it's like, and the other thing too is like I was actually like, he must have actually hit him. You know, like this feels like one of those like stage combat things where, whether it's method acting or what, I feel like he must have actually, because even like Terry O'Quinn just like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
like,
you see, it's like, oh, this guy's gonna hit me in the face.
Yeah,
this was not the blocking we practiced.
Yeah,
They pull Jack off and he collapses. I watched this episode twice, and the second time I was like, did he throw up? I can't. Is he throwing up right now? But he doesn't. I don't think he throws up. But it seems like he should be throwing up. Oh, he's so upset, and it's hard to watch. But it's also like, you know, like I said at the top, I'm watching this. I'm like, does he have the temperament to be the leader here? Like, I know everybody trusts Jack and wants him to be the leader, but maybe he's not cut out for it.
where the hell are you?
It is 100% Jack yelling at his father. Like, it's just like, you abandoned me. You told me lies. You should be ashamed of yourself. You're covered in blood. His blood is on your hands. I just feel like if you played like, if you watched All the Best Cowboys and then immediately played this scene, you're like, oh, I know exactly where this is coming from. This is.
I wonder if someone has gone through, and I'm sure, I hope that there is, but given the dearth of lost content out there, I'm like, maybe there's not. But I would love it if someone did just have a compilation of Jack moments, because then you could even splice in when he's looking out the window during Do No Harm, and his wife-to-be says, I'm sure he'll come. And like, cut with, you don't have what it takes, Jack, and cut with, call it, Jack, cut with, where are you?
I really want that compilation. Oh my god. Oh, that was perfect. That's exactly it. That's exactly oh, okay. And so as they're walking back and everybody's telling Jack, like, Jack, you need to chill. You need to get some rest. And Jack's like, nah. Jack tells Sayid that Locke told Boone not to talk about the hatch. So that's how Sayid hears about the hatch. And we get our next flashback. Sayid, coincidentally, runs into Assam at a mosque. And it's here that we learn that Assam's wife, Zara, died from a stray bomb while she was out shopping. After Assam takes him back to his apartment, Sayid, quote-unquote, discovers a bug in the group's smoke detector. Which I am less mad at how obvious this is, because they have shown us that these guys have not noticed that smoking directly under the smoke detector has not tripped it. So if they're not smart enough to realize that they should have set it off days or even weeks ago, obviously they're not going to put two and two together and be like, oh, obviously this guy is a plant from the CIA.
Oh. For some reason, I thought it was their bug.
No, because so in the interrogation scene earlier, when the CIA is telling him about this terrorist cell, and they say they're looking for the stuff, he's like, why don't you plant bugs? And she said, oh, we have planted bugs.
Oh, I thought by that there was a metaphor there. She was talking about people.
No, yeah, they
that's such a bummer to me. Because I thought it was like themselves, like they were like keeping a record, like keeping stuff recorded for their own purposes. And so I thought it was really cool that Sayid was like, oh, I see what kind of, I forget what he said, like lawns that you mow or trees you cut or whatever.
Yeah.
That's way less awesome that he knew it was there.
Yeah, it's either Sayid taking his own initiative and destroying the bug to earn their trust, going, not telling the CIA he was doing that, but I think more likely the CIA told him where to find Assam, and that also there was a bug in the smoke detector, and he can take it out to win their trust. Sort of like in Reservoir Dogs, when Tim Roth tells the story about the drug sniffing dog and the police in the restroom. It's the way that you establish trust with the criminals.
Boy, that's a bummer. Well, okay. Before we go too far into this, I have a couple of notes. One was this, because I remember I didn't have a memory of Sayid being religious. You had told me that you did have a memory, but was it this?
No.
You've seen
there
it
is
elsewhere.
There is an episode coming up. I don't know when, but they do show Sayid praying on the beach.
Oh, okay.
But again, as we spoke of before, I think in Solitary, it's never very clear if he is a practicing Muslim, because we never see that elsewhere.
Yeah. The other thing I wrote was, again, I don't know the actor's name, but I do love this character, Assam.
Essam, I believe.
Essam.
Ssam.
I wrote down, he makes me think of an Iraqi Cheddar Bob from 8 Mile. But no, like that kind of like empathetic, lovable screw up, like
not the smartest.
Yeah, like the friend that you would have in every teen rom-com kind of thing, and I love it. I thought that he was so effortlessly bumbling.
Yeah, and he plays that inner sadness really well. Like, he's utterly lost, and he's upset, and he's fallen in with these guys, and it's sad. Yeah, he plays it well.
You're also making me realize what you were saying, that this feels amateur or low effort. They are playing a first-person shooter, which
they're playing Half-Life, according to Lostpedia.
Yeah, then that's but I'm realizing, like, yeah, that's like, with shooters or terrorist attacks, associating Doom or shooters with that kind of person. Low effort. It's like they might as well have been listening to Marilyn Manson when he came in. Yeah, now in retrospect, that doesn't sit quite right.
I don't like the taste of it. On the beach, Claire doesn't want to give up Aaron, and I keep calling him Aaron, even though he hasn't actually gotten his name yet in the show, but I'm going to keep calling the baby Aaron. Charlie is already calling him Turnip Head, and
I'll tell you something. I always thought that Charlie was calling him like Turnip Head, like it's like a British word for tourniquet, because he was wrapped in the blanket. This was the first time where I'm like, oh, Turnip Head. Like,
Charlie is very patient with Claire, and I totally get where Claire's coming from. I would be, she's absolutely shell shocked. Like, she doesn't want to leave this baby for a second, and Charlie thankfully convinces her. Locke brings Shannon Boone's bag. I don't remember Boone ever carrying that bag, but
he definitely did. I saw him in several scenes. Yeah, he carried it. Also, I love this shot. They've shown this shot a few times at the beach, and a different character sitting there. It's just a great shot.
It's gorgeous. Yeah, it's once again nothing beats being on location, and what a location. Locke tells Shannon there's a storm coming. He tells Shannon that he should have told Boone not to hunt with him, and I think it seems like he's genuinely trying to comfort her. And he says that he hopes she can forgive him, and then almost runs away like a scared child.
Yep.
He gets up so fast.
He's like, well, all done here. And this is the kind of thing that's like, God, man. Also, change your fucking shirt. Like,
I have nothing further to add to that. That is correct.
Well, nothing feels more insincere than God. To me, this is the equivalent of Terry O'Quinn bagging your loved one and is still wearing a condom and is like, I'm sorry, I hope you can forget. It's like, buddy, take a shower, get dressed, come back and apologize.
Oh, you let him take a shower. That's nice.
I just don't understand.
Like, well, while you're here, you might as well use the shower.
Everyone has more than one shirt, which plays into a larger thing that we'll talk about when they show it. But yeah, lose the shirt.
You're not wrong. Shannon immediately goes to Sayid. She says John Locke killed her brother and asks him to do something about that. And this next scene, I thought of you. Kate gives Jack his juice. And then he's like, wait, what happened? What's going on? She's like, oh, yeah, I drugged your juice. And I could just see you sitting on the couch just being like, yep, that's what Kate would do. She would trick Jack into getting what she wants.
That's pretty much what I wrote. It's like, but you know what? I did write that I thought it was sweet because she tells him once she knows it's taken effect, but she knows that if he woke up and realized what had happened, he'd be like, God damn it, Kate. But she has the foresight to be like, just so you know, I did do this. I can't undo it.
It is the right move because Jack has spent the whole first half of this episode adamantly refusing to rest. And Kate's just like, I'm just gonna drug you because you can't do this anymore.
Yeah. And I forget now if Jack says it or if Kate says it, but whoever said night is real cute. That's all I wrote there.
It is, yeah, she does say night.
I thought that was real cute. And I actually do like what Jack is. He's probably, doesn't he kind of like resign to it? He's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he absolutely does. It's really funny. Matthew Fox doesn't get to be funny very often, but it is very much a look of like, well, I mean, I can't stop this, so fine, I will accept the nap. In the caves, Walt watches Locke wash the blood out of his shirt, and I would think for as long as it's been, that blood ain't going nowhere. I sincerely doubt Locke could actually wash blood out of that shirt. It would be dry. It would be in there forever. I don't think you're getting blood out of that shirt.
Nope. And for whatever reason, that's now his look. His shirt is dyed with Boone's blood.
Is that what's going on?
That's what's going on. He's dyeing his shirt.
So even though I saw him washing the shirt, I was like, oh, okay, so now he's wearing a beige shirt. Even after watching this episode twice, I didn't pick up on that. I was like, he's just wearing a different shirt.
It has bothered me in every single scene in this episode. I'm like, seriously, lose the shirt. So then when it's like, oh, he's wearing the blood of Boone. Like, it's just like, this isn't right at all. Like, I don't care if Locke is a villain. Like, you don't wear the blood of your ally and think, oh, people will trust me. Like, it's just like,
it does seem like he could find another shirt somewhere. Yeah, I don't care for that.
He has the blue and white checkered shirt from the, like, you don't need this. This is so baffling to me.
Sayid asks him how he got his scar, and Locke calls it a war wound. And Sayid says it looks like a surgical scar, and Locke says, yeah, war wound. All right.
See, this is the kind of thing that then turns me back to being like, I love this episode. Because I adore that kind of dialogue, so much so that I did dig up the quote from the previous episode that we talked about, this kind of doublespeak that Locke does, where the beauty of watching this, believing that Locke is a villain, is when we had the episode Confidence Man, where Sayid proceeds to torture Sawyer. As we talked about, Sayid got clonked on the back of the head, and being the great deductor he is like, I'm going to go to Locke first. Seems like that makes sense.
Yeah.
And what made it so great and congruous with what we know of Sayid being able to see through lies and find the truth and stuff is it is extremely believable that he wouldn't see through what Locke was doing, because Locke is in many ways telling the truth. So as an example, during that episode when Sayid is basically accusing John of like, hey, who can, account for your whereabouts, blah, 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 Locke says, well, it would seem whoever attacked you has a reason for not wanting to get off the island. Maybe someone who is profiting from our current circumstances. And then he proceeds to go into maybe it's Sawyer. But those first two sentences, he's talking to himself. Yep. He's absolutely telling the truth. He's profiting from the island. He has no reason to getting off the island, etc. And yeah, in this kind of scenario of like, what is that? It's a war wound. He's like, well, that's a surgical scar. Like I said, it's a war wound. And it's like, Yeah, no, I believe that Locke is not. I don't think that in any way is he trying to pretend that he is a war veteran. I think that he absolutely is like, no, it is
Yeah.
100%. He views that as a war. And I think that kind of stuff is really cool.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Sayid asked Locke to take him to the plane so that he can salvage radio parts. And Sayid is going to enter into interrogation mode. Next flashback. Issam tells Sayid that he's been chosen for martyrdom, which means that he's going to set off a suicide bomb, which I don't think at any point in the episode they actually say suicide bomb or suicide bomber. Issam is scared and doesn't want to do it, which I really appreciated. I liked that they showed that he wants to do something, but he's conflicted. Because he doesn't know where the C4 is, the CIA tells Sayid that he has to convince his friend to blow himself up. And Sayid obviously does not want to do this. He doesn't want to compromise his morals. He doesn't want to endanger his friend. But they threaten to arrest Nadia as an enemy combatant, and they're basically saying they'll take her to a black site and do whatever they want to her. Which, yeah, the U.S. did that to people.
They still kind of do.
Yeah, they still do. They have and do.
I mean, even the police do that. So it's, you know.
Yeah. So, and that's, I mean, and ultimately that's what gets Sayid to play ball here, because he loves Nadia and he doesn't want them to do anything to her.
I think that there's a part of him that thinks that he can save them both.
He does. No, you're right. That is true. But it's also, yeah, and it's like, this is what you were talking about, that like this episode is dealing with some really, really tough issues, especially at the time. I mean, this was incredibly topical at the time. And Naveen Andrews does a good job, I think, of showing Sayid's his conflict. But this whole storyline just feels like it needed so much more time. Because if you're going to do this, like, you got to, these little snippets of flashbacks just don't do it for me. You know, like having an episode of Jack trying to save Boone's life intercut with those brief moments at the wedding, like that is really effective, because that's all we need from that. It tells us everything that we need to know there. And yet this whole storyline with Issam, it just feels like it's such a big, scary, terrible thing. And I don't know, maybe just one more flashback. I needed a little bit more of what this means to Sayid. Okay, you know what? I just figured it out. What bothers me about this, we know that Sayid doesn't want to do this to his friend. And we know that Sayid wants to get together with Nadia. But we never get any insight into how Sayid feels about what this means about his country and what this means about his own religion. And those are big things. Like, he is being asked to impersonate a terrorist, to convince somebody to commit what would be an extremely violent terrorist act. And the fact that we don't ever get Sayid's take on that, his feelings on that, it makes it feel empty to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think that if they went that route, it would be possible for it to get too preachy or political.
Yeah.
Like,
you're not wrong. You're right. You are right.
I think that you're making me imagine, like, I don't even know if this was a consideration, because again, it is such heavy material, but like, I'm imagining a producer being in the room, hearing this story kind of play out, and then pausing for a minute and being like, just to go with me here. So the elevator pitch for this episode is, what if terrorists are good people and the good people are bad people? Is that what we're saying? And like, because that's kind of what they're putting forward. It's almost like they have to keep reminding us that, like, hey, innocent lives are at stake. Doesn't matter how empathetic your friend is. Like,
yeah. You make an excellent point. And for me, it's like, if you're gonna go here, fucking go here. Like, tell me what's it, because I don't know. I don't know how Sayid feels about this. I know he feels bad about betraying his friend. That part I know. But as to, like, because it's so fucked up. Like, it's so fucked up to be like while you're like, you know, you've left your home country, obviously, because things are bad. You are then held in prison without any explanation why, and then told you need to go pretend to be a terrorist, even though this has nothing to do with you, and we're going to threaten the woman who means the world to you. Like, It just feels like at the end of it, he's done a job.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Did you ever see Red Letter Media's Plinkett Avatar review?
I think so.
There's a sequence there where he's talking about how these are space marines, and if you were to unpack that, they should be like orderly, qualified, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, and yet, look at this shot where he shows a scene of like everyone getting their marching orders, and everyone in the back rows look like, standard builds of people. But there's two guys up at the front row who look like your stereotypical redneck hillbillies looking to shoot stiff.
Yeah.
And he's like, these guys aren't astronauts. These guys didn't go into the Space Marines. I'm actually realizing, I wonder if that is like some sort of subversive shit where, because the flashback before this shows Assam being very empathetic, but you have these two douchey Iraqi guys who are smoking, drinking, playing Half-Life. And if I'm not mistaken, at one point they even like pop a cork or something like, yeah, celebrate. Good on you, brother. Knowing that they don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
I wonder if that almost infected my view of this, where I'm like, God, what douches? Like all these guys. And then it's like, they almost like they added those guys as an afterthought, because it's like, this is all really fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't help that the CIA are such assholes.
No, it does not help. Everybody looks bad here.
Yeah.
Charlie and Hurley try to get baby Aaron to stop crying. It's cute, but ineffective.
This is another thing that just feels off, because they kind of cut Hurley's rendition of the song, so it's just a little out of rhythm.
Maybe it's for licensing reasons. I don't know.
But he does do a good job.
Sayid knows what heroin tastes like.
Okay. Tell me you looked this up, because I was like, why is he? I've seen this in some cop shows where they'll find cocaine and they'll be like, that's definitely cocaine. My understanding was that cocaine is more effective. Like maybe if you snort it, so that's okay. Heroin, you can't just eat it.
I'm pretty sure that you are correct. That is not. You don't just taste. It's also like with fentanyl today. Like if you touch fentanyl, you can die. It will just straight up kill you. So and
it looked like a lot.
It looked like a lot. It looked like he wasn't taking just a teeny tiny bit. But it also, I was just so blown away that why would Sayid know what heroin tastes like? He's not a cop. I don't know. I mean, well, okay. You know what? I take this back. So opium is grown in Afghanistan, and Afghanistan is near Iraq. Maybe they also grow poppies in Iraq. So maybe it would be smuggled into the soldiers. I don't know. It just seemed like it's one of those things that happens in a TV show, and if you're not paying too close attention, you're like, yeah, I mean, that's legit. Sayid seems like he knows what he's doing. He seems like, but it's also like, no, hold on. When did he acquire this knowledge?
Yeah, you're right. I actually bypassed. Why does he know what that tastes like? I was just more blown away by how much he took, because I know that we've seen, or we will see, Mr. Echo at one point take a knife, test the heroin, and lick it.
And he would know.
Exactly. Yeah. He would know. But also, if that got him a little high, he's a drug lord. That's fine. Sayid is just like, mm-hmm. It's just like.
Well, on top of the fact that they explicitly said it was heroin 2 episodes ago. I believe Boone, when he throws the thing out the window, said it's heroin.
Oh, yeah.
Even though, and we brought it up then. It was like, well, how does Boone know? You don't know. You have no idea. But they did say it was. It was just. And again, I hate to be I'm not trying to kick this episode in the nuts. There's just a lot of little things in this episode that really bugged me, and that's one of them.
Well, you're right. I mean, it is so funny with Boone too in the previous episode. Because I'm like, yeah, if I was in the woods, or I don't even have to be in the woods. This happened to me. I thought I found on the boats once a gunpowder bag, and it was a used tampon. And
yeah, it's hard to explain to people who don't know, but that actually is not a. I can totally see how you would get that from.
Yes,
Because it's long. Because it's a long.
It's got
packet.
a string, and it clearly was like thrown on the deck, so like also
Yeah.
got like kind of browned and whatnot.
Yeah,
And
no,
it was like,
I'm with you on that. I'm with you.
but like that's the thing. Like, yeah, if I saw a Virgin Mary and there was a baggie in it, I'd be like, oh, I wonder if this is someone's ashes, or like, I wouldn't immediately be like, oh, heroin.
And it's also that like we have repeatedly shown that Boone is wrong about stuff. So it would have made more sense for Boone to be like, it's nothing but heroin, John, and like throw it down, and Locke be like, well, actually, this is crack cocaine. So yeah, anyway, Sayid knows what
It's
heroin
all
is.
weird.
He confirms it's heroin. He continues to interrogate Locke about the accident, and he knows that Locke is carrying a gun. Locke gives it to him, and then Locke freely confesses to knocking Sayid out while he was setting up the transceiver, and Sayid is understandably upset about this. And Locke actually makes a decent point that it was dangerous to lead people to a distress signal that said they're all dead, it killed everyone. I'm still surprised that Sayid actually took this point in stride. And he also mentions the raft, and Sayid's like, did you burn the raft? And he's like, no, I did not burn the raft.
I do like that he's like, just because I did this thing doesn't mean I did that thing.
And then after all of this truth telling to Sayid asks him about the hatch, and Locke's like, the plane has 2 hatches. That's probably what Boone meant.
Yeah, that's old man Locke. That's the
Yeah.
Oh, just a doddering old man.
Yeah.
I gotta say, just so much of this is so weird. Like, this is one of those things too, where again, as we've said, Terry O'Quinn is a good actor. I don't understand his petulance when he's like, "Here's the gun. Does that earn me any trust?" And he's like, "You only gave it to me because I called you out. Why would that earn you trust? Like,
Yeah.
What are you, 4? Like, I don't understand why this doesn't read like the Locke that up to this point we've seen of being like collected. Because even this is like, even leading him into the woods. I thought all of that was fine when he's like, asking him at some point in those woods, like he says, like, how do you know there's a plane and I'm not like luring you into a trap? And he's like, I can tell when you're lying.
Mm-hmm.
All that stuff is fine. But yeah, like stuff like that where it's like, well, you have a gun you haven't told me about. Okay, well, here you go. Are we cool now? No, we're not cool, man. I called you out. This is like, if again, I'm going to go back to this cheating analogy. It's like, yeah, I cheated on you. So what? It's like admitting to the thing doesn't undo the thing.
You don't, yes, and you're cheating. That's not.
Yeah. And again, like for whatever reason, maybe it is because we're heading into the season finale, but like it was weird to me that Locke doesn't give up the hatch and instead reveals the transceiver thing. Because
yes, the fact that he comes back to the funeral to apologize for Boone's death, the fact that he apologizes to Shannon, the fact that he agrees to show Sayid the plane, the fact that he would give all of this information away freely and then still wouldn't give up the hatch, it just feels arbitrary. Like I don't get, like, what more are you hanging on to? Because you were not able to get into that hatch with Boone's help, and you're certainly not going to get in by yourself. So what are you holding out for? The end of the episode is the answer. It almost felt like, it was the other episode that we talked about this, maybe it was House of the Rising Sun, that they know what the finale is going to be, and so they're kind of just putting the pieces in place to get there, but they don't want to blow their load too soon. Blow their wad. They don't want to spooge everywhere. It just feels like he's going to admit to all of these things and not that until Shannon shoots him in the head. I don't know.
It's weird.
Yeah, I think it's weird. Next flashback. Assam brings up great reasons not to blow himself up. He mentions that innocent people will die. He says maybe he's doing it just because he's angry. And Sayid does his best to convince him to kill himself, which is tough. Sayid says that he'll never be whole till he's reunited with Nadia, which is not a lie. Assam takes this as a sign that they should kill themselves together. The only other note I have is that it looks like they're walking through downtown Honolulu. I don't know if they are, but it does look like that. Back on the island, Shannon goes through Boone's possessions. She finds a picture of them in his wallet.
I was going to ask, do you think that's a picture from Ian Somerhalder's rap party?
Maybe. Sayid asks how she is. He tells that he believes Boone's death was an accident. Shannon doesn't accept this. Walt is worried about the raft, and Mike and Jin seem to be getting along. Michael tells his son that they will not be attacked by sharks and that they are not going to die. And he is going to be wrong on both of those counts.
All I wrote there was that Walt's doing his best Rob Schneider and Surf Ninjas impression. What if a shark gets us? What if we die? What if it's like, oh, what if I have this amazing power?
Rob Schneider was in that movie. How old do you think he is in that movie?
I don't know, 12?
I want to say he's probably like 20, but maybe he's like 29. I don't know. Anyway, not the subject. I was trying to explain to Maddie, like, whenever I was telling her about with Tone Loc, where he like gets out of the handcuffs. They're like, how'd you get out of the handcuffs? It's like, I swallow my key on Tuesday. They're like, how'd you know you need it? I swallow my key every Tuesday. And Maddie just started laughing. She's like, that's actually pretty funny. I was like, yeah, Surf Ninjas is a great movie.
Oh, man.
All right, back on track. Charlie's still trying to get Aaron to sleep or be quiet. He discovers that the baby likes Sawyer's voice, and Sawyer running away is funny. I think Josh Holloway nearly laughs for a second.
This is, again, a good character trait of Charlie's that I think is, I know I underappreciated on previous watch-throughs, but I love Charlie's tenacity. You know,
Mm-hmm.
When Jack is clearly like flustered and is trying to push people away, Charlie doesn't stop. And same thing with Sawyer, who is being a dick, and Charlie's like, hey, it's working, go on. Like, he's got it. I don't know if a thick skin is the right term for it, but he just kind of takes this shit. Like,
Especially because the last interaction they had, Sawyer punched him in the face.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, Boone would not approach Sawyer. He'd do one of those things of those guys that's just like, you know, like, you gotta like step back. Like, yeah. I'm not gonna.
Sawyer beat the living hell out of Boone, and they never had a scene together again.
Yeah.
Kate brings Jack some soup. He asks if there's chloroform in it.
I love it.
Someone has stolen the key from around his neck, and so he immediately starts storming through the camp, saying that Locke took it. And Sayid, good on him, assures Jack, he's like, no, Locke didn't take the gun, but I'm pretty sure I know who did. And we see Shannon opening the case in the rain. I just have one question. How did Shannon know where that case was?
I will follow your question with another question. How did she get the key?
Jack was dead to the world. I think when Kate went to go get him soup, Shannon took it.
Oh, and Kate went to go. Okay. Well,
I accept that. I accept that.
Okay.
Because you would think that like Kate would like watch him the whole time, but then he'd be like, no, she went to go get him some soup, and also like who's gonna mess with Jack? But yeah, I'm more pissed off at like
the case. She just knows where it is.
Yeah,
that is weird. That's super weird.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility that she would learn where it was or it's public knowledge where it is, but as far as we know, Shannon does not know where that case is.
You know what would have been a neat thing that I'm sure would be cut from a final version of this episode, and is also 100% me giving the episode way too much credit, is if in Boone's little satchel he had a little notepad that had a number of things that he discovered with Locke, of like, here's how you get to the hatch, for example. Here is where Jack hid the case.
That would be good. That would be really good. And that's you don't even need that much. You just need a little shot of her looking into his diary or whatever. Yeah.
That would add so much in terms of like, knowing that Locke knows where it is. And again, because we know that Boone had difficulty reaching the hatch on multiple occasions. So it's like, he probably would. Write it down. Like,
yeah. And it leads into, after this next flashback, my last big just sort of plot criticism of it is the fact that like Sayid happens to find Locke and Shannon. He finds them with no problem in the middle of the jungle at night when it's raining. And that's just a level of contrivance that is unacceptable. Like we have talked about time and time again that this island is huge And Locke also tends to spend his time in parts of the jungle that other people don't go. Like, what did Shannon do? She got the gun and then at night in the rain just started walking through the jungle looking for Locke. Like, and Sayid just happened to find them. Like, I get that it's a TV show. I understand that. I understand that we can't have a whole hour of them all just looking for each other in the jungle. But the reason I bring it up now is because most other episodes don't have that level of contrivance. Like, things feel much more organic. And this is just, we have a brief shot of Sayid running through the jungle, and then, oh, good. There he is. They happen to be in the same clearing that he was running into. And that stuff bugs me.
Yeah, no, and because they're usually so good about it too. Is that kind of continuity of like, it's not that this episode started and Jack was suddenly like, "I'm gonna get you, Locke," and beats the shit out of him because we forgot that not 30 minutes ago in Island Time he had literally given like who knows how many pints of blood.
Yeah,
and they're usually good about continuity like that. But no, I agree. I think it's very choppy.
It would have made more sense if Shannon had like waited for him at the caves, or if, she was like on the outskirts of the beach waiting for him to like either leave or come back. But, we want to have a dramatic moment in the jungle with the rain coming down. And it looks good. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't look good. It's very dramatic. It's very tense, but the island is big. It's very big. I just don't.
It also kind of feels like I could also see this being a thing if this was how scripts were written and not, independently at your leisure. But like if it was in a writer's room where they're like, we're missing the scene of Shannon confronting Locke. And it's like, how should this go? And like, as they're like figuring it out, they're like, fuck it. Like, let's move on to the next scene. And
it feels like that. It does feel like that. It feels like they're like, well, good enough. We're almost done writing the show. We got to break like 2-3 more stories and then we're out. So yeah, I don't mean to be so relentlessly negative because I don't think that it's not like with whatever the case may be where I think it's just flagrantly making terrible decisions, or House of the Rising Sun where it's just the episode's just not fully cooked. We're almost done with the first season, and this show's had some bangers, and this just all feels amateurish, as we've already said. I shouldn't keep repeating myself, but
no, I mean, it's interesting. The more we talk about it, the more I am like, yeah, that didn't sit right.
I hate to disabuse you of your love for this episode. I'm not trying to poop on your parade here.
I stand by that. It's what I like about it is how different it is from any episode I remember. Well, just again, the subject matter. I honestly, I don't think, with the exception of maybe the death of Jeremy Bentham or whatever Locke's pseudonym is,
I think it's
like where we see a suicide take place. I don't know that there's any episode that goes into that. And again, I don't mean to also like minimize the fact that this is not a suicide. This is this is how a terrorist is made kind of thing. And I don't mean to minimize that, but again, it's just it is a subject matter that is so heavy, and I have no memory of. We've seen them tackle things like drugs in various forms across various characters at different states. We've seen them tackle murder and loss, and we've seen them tackle things like just I guess vengeance. And to me, this is just like, it is such a different story than I remember being told. And so I think that's it. I think a part of this is, it felt like I was seeing this episode for the first time in a way. Usually I have a vague memory of all of these, and then this one was very much like a whoa.
And you're right. They do deserve credit for being willing to put this front and center in an episode when this was so much a part of the national and international climate. I think that's why I want it to be better, though, is that if you're gonna talk about this, you gotta make me care more. You gotta talk about it more.
Yeah, in a way, it's almost like this is an episode maybe that's hurt more by the structure of the show.
I think you're right. I think a better way to handle this would be to make most of the episode the flashback.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely yeah. And in fact, I'm realizing like why didn't they play with that more? Because we know from like I distinctly remember watching Solitary because I think I even call it out on the podcast is that like we go I think it's like 9 or 11 minutes or it might even be 7 minutes, but again we go a long time before there's actually a flashback.
Mm-hmm.
If more of the running time was spent in the flashback instead of looking for ways to keep you visually engaged.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I haven't played soccer. Oh, I haven't had a mosque. It's like you guys could just have a conversation in a room like Jack and his dad did. But yeah, no, I think you're right. I think having more time on the flashback, because then, like, yeah, as you mentioned, the island stuff kind of does get padded.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, in our second to last flashback, Sayid and Assam are told it's time to martyr themselves. They are shown the truck with the C4 and told they're heroes. And Sayid finally tells Assam that he's working with the CIA and tells him he'll give him 10 minutes to get away. Assam does not take this well. I mean, he's upset for the same reason that Sayid is upset, which is he has spent all of this time trying to convince Assam to kill himself when he wasn't even being genuine about that. And it's almost like Assam kills himself because he cannot handle the grief of being betrayed by his friend. And that hurts. Like it's tough to watch. He tells Sayid that he hopes Nadia makes him whole again, and he shoots himself, which I don't know, but I would imagine that in his religion that's not great. But he is so grief-stricken, he's so broken as a person that's what he does. Because it's either that or it's prison.
My insensitive thing to say to this is he took bros before hoes
Oh my god.
to the nth degree.
Oh my god.
Okay, without being too insensitive and harping on this, his delivery of that line though of like, because again he was under the impression that Sayid too has lost the woman he loved and hasn't. He's trying to get her back, and he's like, "You did this for a woman?" Like the way he says it isn't like, "Oh, I'm a closet misogynist." He says it like, "You convinced me to kill myself for a girlfriend?" Like, yeah, that level of betrayal I think is certainly like it is palpable.
Yeah.
The other thing is that I do think he shoots himself in part because of how that actor has been very masterfully, subtly playing this, which is that he is kind of he exudes that bumbling best friend persona of, I screw up. He probably blames himself for the bad things that happen, even when he is not responsible at all.
Yeah.
And I get the impression that, he's like, I guess I'm doing this thing, and it's like, wait, Saeed's working for the CIA? Wait, I invited him in? Oh my God, I'm an idiot. It's like he's the guy who's like, oh, we can trust this person, and then he's like, oh no, we can't, and that's my fault. So yeah, I think a part of it too is that like, and I'm sure it's part of the reason why he doesn't pull the trigger on Sayid is because he's like, I've already brought like shame on my family. This is all I can do.
Mm-hmm.
Which is again just so tragic. I joke because I know that it is a work of fiction, but yeah, just like I don't want to say it's worse because I know it's not, but it is. And the other thing too, just in terms of visually, I can't believe how far they go before they cut away.
Yeah, I was curious about that. I was like, how much do they show of this? And it's, you know what he's doing. They don't show anything graphic, but you get it.
Yeah, well, and like I feel like in most modern shows, you'd like hold the shot on Sayid, and you just see his hand with the gun like move away, and then you'd hear the sound. But they're on him. They show him take it and go, and Yeah, it's again, it is yeah, this part really like I was like I this is the part that I remember from previous viewing, but again, just like the significance of this was definitely lost on me. I also this is the part where I mentioned at the top has a line that again I remembered at the time feeling that this was like weirdly over dramatic, and in retrospect or watching it now, I was like, no, that was right. But when Sayid says, "I am your friend," um, I remembered that delivery being way more exaggerated.
I think yeah, it's we haven't seen Sayid in that mode before of him being genuinely. It's not a heroic look. Like he is quivering. He is begging for his life, and which I think most of us would be at that stage. Having like he knows how messed up this is. He knows what he's done is absolutely wrong to his friend here, and he's like, I'm gonna get shot. This is how I die. This is how
Yeah,
I die in the cab of this truck. It's tough. It's both Sayid and Jack have very unmanly moments with Jack shrieking like a child and Sayid, quavering in his boots. And it's real. It's very real, and I applaud the show for that because no one wants to be threatened with a gun.
this is also just kind of a tangent, um, but this scene did make me think like how many times on the show do we wind up seeing a character die in a car or in the passenger seat specifically? And I counted three, this being one, Ben's dad being another, and Kate's young best friend being a third.
Mr. Abaddon dies on a car. I think he's like putting Locke's wheelchair in the trunk, and he gets shot. He gets sniped in the
Oh yeah,
cemetery.
that's such a oh, and that real actor's dead.
Yeah.
They're just like that sucks. But no, I don't know. I just like for some reason just the way that it's presented, it is almost like I'm like I don't know. It's just like the way that it moves. Almost like I've seen this shot before. And then I'm like I could very clearly see Ben's dad doing what I remember looking like the worst cough, and that it looks very pained and straight. Like he doesn't. That actor was like, this doesn't feel good. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a minor thing.
Sayid manages to find Shannon and Locke with perfect timing, and Sayid tells her that she can never take this back. Shannon says that Jack called Locke a liar, and Jack knows everything. And she manages to get a shot off. It just grazes Locke, and they take her away. Back on the beach, Claire finds Charlie having Sawyer read a car magazine to Aaron with Sawyer's adorable glasses. I'm so glad that we got to see those again. Kate tells Sayid that Shannon needs time, and we get our last flashback. We learn that Nadia is in Irvine, which is just south of Los Angeles, and Sayid claims Assam's body and tells him to change his ticket. And that moment is, I think, my favorite part of the episode is him being so upset and mad at them. It's like, I told you repeatedly that this guy, was just in a bad situation, and you made me do this to him, and then you're not even going to give him the decency of a Muslim funeral. You're just going to burn his body. So they've been such dicks to him this whole time. I expected them to be like, no, this is the ticket you got, so you either take it or you don't.
Yeah.
But I'm glad they were human, and they were like, all right, fine, yeah, we'll change your ticket, whatever.
It is interesting. I don't know why. I wrote all of these down because just prior for that final flashback, Sayid has the line, perhaps I made a mistake. I know we've talked a bit about destiny. I do think that's interesting that if he had taken the flight that they chose for him, presumably he would have been, in Irvine now because it's right next to LA.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, he made the choice, which it's interesting, but not earth shattering. I also really love that it is extremely evident in this final flashback that Sayid's been crying.
Oh yeah, I think I missed that.
His eyes are swollen and puffy and red, and I thought that's like it's a nice touch because we don't have to see Sayid crying to know that this means something to him. But yeah, I like that. It's like, that's why I love that the CIA at this point is all business, and he is like, it just clearly been crying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so yeah, I thought that was a nice touch. I also made a note that I thought you were going to call out that he says that time won't make a difference as a reference to time.
I will be honest with you. I was rushing to take the final notes because I had told my children that they could watch Paw Patrol in 5 minutes, and I was trying to finish up this episode, and I had one of them sitting on my lap trying to use my pen to draw, and I had the other one yelling in my ear that it was time for Paw Patrol, and I was like, I don't know what he said. I'm sure Derek's listening. Oh.
Well, going back real quick to the shootout, I know we already talked about the hilarious "You've never fired a gun before," which I love.
Yeah.
This was, though, again, one of those things where it's like I kind of get what they were doing, but I'm still not on board, which is like, yeah, Locke is just like giving Jack this side eye of like, look what you've done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, no, man, you did this.
Yeah.
Like, and it's weird and it feels out of character. And it only gets worse after Locke gets shot on the wrong side of the head. I don't know. This is like the weirdest way to. I mean, I don't know. I've never been grazed by a bullet, but like, she shoots him and then he goes like, oh, and he falls back.
It's not a good stunt. I guess they just had like some pillows behind him and he just wanted to make sure he hit them right. I don't know.
Yeah. But like, even after that, when he gets up, and don't get me wrong, being shot in any capacity, I'm sure sucks. But looking at this graze, I'm like, this is an awful lot of glaring when you're coming out of this okay.
I'll push back on that. I don't think anybody likes to get shot. I don't think that's.
It almost, I guess here's the thing. It's very clear. It seems so beneath him to be so unenlightened to not recognize this cycle for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if Shannon is holding a gun on you because she thinks that you're the reason someone she loves is dead, and you think that's wrong, then why would you then, after being shot at by someone who was accusing you, then be like, and this person's the reason I was shot? Just like, it's weird. It's such a, I understand feeling like your reputation is tarnished. But again, I think that's the other thing too, frankly, that bothers me about this. That when he comes to the beach, it's not like he has, it feels like it's rehearsed, and yet at the same time, like it's improvised. Like, Locke, obviously people are going to be upset. You didn't think maybe I should come up with a better story or a reason I lied?
Well, and he tells Sayid at the plane, he said that, Jack told every man, woman, and child that I've come to know over the past month that I'm a liar. And it's like, you didn't help your case by dropping off a bloody Boone and then running away. That's on you. Jack didn't make you run away.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that I just, it's weird. It's not, Locke in this episode is such a different Locke, and I don't like it at all.
Well, next episode is a Kate episode, I believe. And
oh no! I thought we were.
Well, and though I'm not wild about that, I am curious to see who directs it and if everybody acts more like themselves. Because I wonder if it's a script thing or if it's a director thing, or I don't know what else it could be. But it just doesn't feel like none of these characters are really acting quite the way that we're used to. Like, it's not a huge thing. It's just a little.
Yeah. It almost like it's like they did one take.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a meta joke of there's a storm coming. Maybe it's like, we got to capture all of this stuff in one take because there's literally a hurricane about to.
I mean, that could be what it is, because there's a lot of lines and there's a lot of stuff that does feel like, even like this the various things of the script, like, just running into it and finding like maybe they were really, on a time crunch. And they're like, we just gotta wrap this episode up. We just gotta do it. We gotta shoot it. I mean, that's all speculation on my part, but
yeah, I mean, it would at least make sense for the island stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Again, since Sayid is so into Shannon, it is just like, I do really appreciate that Sayid is a man of action. He
Mm-hmm.
dies because and despite her not seeing it this way, he is as much saving her as he's saving Locke.
Yeah, well, because that's what he says, is that you can't ever take this back. You will have, if you kill Locke, you will have always killed Locke. It's not a mistake you can erase.
And, we already know from the context of the episode that she probably blames Sayid a little bit for taking her away from Boone. Like, maybe this wouldn't have happened, blah, blah, blah. And we know that she's upset with Sayid because she's like, hey, will you do something about this? Hey, you didn't kill him. No, I don't think he's lying. He's very much, he has been nothing but a dutiful, good boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And even in this moment, it's like, and I think that's another thing too that's kind of neat, is that you could have had Sayid, if you didn't do this kind of thing, it would be possible to view this as though Sayid just is in it for the.
You're saying he's doing it for the nookie?
Yeah. But like, that's the thing, is like, I think that it really seems like he's genuinely like, he makes every effort this episode to help Shannon without compromising his own morals. And, it very much like, I don't remember exactly how this stuff winds up playing out, but I have to imagine, I feel like this is effectively like a breakup without,
yeah.
I like Sayid in this episode. I think the flashback is good, admittedly a bit half-baked.
I think I said at the beginning, I like Sayid too, but I also just don't know what we're supposed to take from this other than Sayid will go to great lengths to be with the person he cares about. Because Sayid doesn't have to prevent a suicide in this episode. Like, I get that it's, it doesn't need to be a one-to-one, but But anyway, after the final flashback, as Locke patches himself up, Sayid says that Locke may be their best hope of surviving on the island, and then he demands that he bring him to the hatch. That's the episode. It was the greater good.
The greater good.
The greater good. And then I'm also compiling that list of secrets on the island. And this episode, we did get an answer to a secret, which is who knocked out Sayid. And we find out it was Locke. And
we found an answer to a secret that we didn't know was a secret, which is that Nadia's alive. So they got to...
Yeah.
You know what else is just like a really dumb line, I'm realizing. But it's endearing because, again, it reminded me of like this Senator Bob character that Assam is playing. Sayid was a communications officer. He knows things. Or is he was in the Republican Guard? He knows things. I was one of the two. I was like,
no, it was that was so, yeah, you're right. He says he was in the Republican Guard. He knows things.
That is definitely a first draft line, if I've ever heard one.
Somehow the Emperor returned.
Is that a Star Wars thing? Is that something they say?
Oh yeah. Have you not seen Rise of Skywalker?
I haven't seen anything since the 2003.
Okay, well don't see it. But so spoilers. Emperor Palpatine comes back in The Rise of Skywalker, and it is never explained how. You just have a character who says somehow the Emperor returned.
Just to be clear, same Emperor that was thrown down seemingly a bottomless shaft on a Death Star that then exploded.
Yep.
Okay.